First of all, I want to introduce myself. I'm Mary Ellen Morgan. In case you don't know me, I'll be here a few more months as your sabbatical minister. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I want to let you all know that in case you haven't seen the pink triangle on Twin Peaks, it is Pride Month. And we are grateful for the knowledge and wisdom we've gained to realize that we are all more alike than unalike in this world. And in case you haven't noticed, today's flower communion, but let me tell you about our flower communion. The flower communion service was created by Norbert Čapek, who founded the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. He introduced the special service to that church in 1923. Norbert Čapek first met his future wife, Czech-born Maya Otavik, in New York City while he was studying for his PhD. It was at her urging that Norbert left the Baptist ministry and turned to Unitarianism and graduated from my alma mater, Meadville Lombard Theological School. The Čapeks returned to Czechoslovakia in 1921 and established the dynamic liberal church in Prague. Maya Čapek was ordained in 1926. By 1941, this church had 3,200 members. When the Čapeks first started the church, Norbert had felt the need for some symbolic ritual that would bind people more closely together. For Norbert Čapek's Prague church, that format had to be one that would not alienate any who had forsaken other religions. The traditional Christian communion service with bread and wine was not acceptable to the members of his congregation. So he turned to the native beauty of their countryside for elements of a communion which would be genuine to them. This simple service was a result. It was such a success that it was held yearly, just before the summer recess of the church. Now Unitarian churches, typically until, about 20, 30 years ago, did not meet during the summer. And my first minister used to say that was because we were the only church God trusted out of her sight for 2 months during the year. The flower communion was brought to the United States in 1940 by Maya Čapek during her tour of the United States and introduced the flower communion to the Unitarian Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, Maya was unable to return to Prague during the outbreak of World War II, and it was not until the war was over that Norbert Čapek's death in the Nazi concentration camp of Dachau was revealed. He had resisted the Nazis in many ways, including sheltering Jewish and other refugees being sought by the Nazis. Let's take a moment of silence now to honor the resistance and compassion of Norbert Čapek and all who resisted and are still resisting the evil oppression of fascist movements. Amen. From this beginning, the flower ceremony has spread to many of our Unitarian Universalist churches and has been adapted along the way. You were asked to bring a flower of your choice, either from your gardens, fields, the roadsides, your neighbor's garden, or your favorite grocery store. The flower you brought symbolizes what each of us brings to this religious community and how we come here by our own free will. The flower you receive later symbolizes the gifts each of us receives from this gathered religious community. This symbolizes the gifts of grace we receive regularly from one another, and also what we give to one another, perhaps without even knowing it. Now we're going to come to the part of the ceremony where we will bring our flowers forward. For those of you who are online, and if you're willing and able, then please turn your video camera on. Take time to look at other people's faces by going into the gallery. Jen, could you put the gallery up? And scrolling through the different screens if necessary. Those online, please look at the people who are online with you. For those who are present in the sanctuary, look at those around you. Look at the diversity of the faces in this community. These are your beloved fellow congregants. Now, each of you, look at the flower that you hold. Feel it in your hand, examine it, see if it has a fragrance. Fully experience it with your senses, the beauty and complexity of each flower. Continue appreciating your flower as you bring it forward. Look at what we have created. Communion is the bond that unites us with each other and with the divine as each of us experiences the sacred. Communion is an act of radical interdependence. The significance of the flower communion is that as no two flowers are alike, so no two people are alike. Yet each has a contribution to make. Together, the different flowers form a beautiful bouquet. Our common bouquet would not be the same without the unique addition of each individual flower. Thus it is with our church community. It would not be the same without each and every one of us. Thus, this service is a statement of the richness, diversity, and beauty of our community. By exchanging flowers later, we symbolically show our willingness to walk together in our search for meaning, disregarding all that might divide us. Each person gives and receives a flower, thus symbolizing our shared celebration in community. This communion of sharing is essential to a free people and a free religion. Now I'll give a blessing of the flowers, which is a translation of the blessing Dr. Norbert Chapek gave during his flower communion in Prague during the 1920s and 30s. And consecration means dedication to a deity or to our highest ideals. Will you join me in a moment of prayer? Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of life's most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship. But may we realize that whenever we can do, whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in the world. Amen.
I'm going to share a reading by Reverend Tess Baumberger. It's called The Days of Many Flowers. We all have those days of no flowers, just weeds. You know the kind I mean, the days when the trials and tribulations seem most present, the days when the commitments we make exceed the time we have to give, And yet it is all such important work, and there's so much more to do. The days when someone is snarky and we snark right back. The days of our own mistakes that we cannot admit to ourselves. The days of criticism that we take too much to heart, ignoring all previous and current praise. The days when we simply cannot summon compassion for those who push our buttons, no matter how hard we try to do so. We all know those days of no flowers in our lives, when the weeds rise up and seem to choke out the beauty. Then there are the days of more flowers than the vases can hold. I think we've got that going on. You know those days, the days of fun and productivity, where creativity is queen in loving and thoughtful ways. Days when everything flows. The days when people treat each other gently, even when someone is snarky, even if it is you who's snarky. When a thoughtful silence wraps you and them in a holy moment of connection. The days when you can take criticism with a grain of salt and praise and positive feedback with a thankful, open heart. The days when exactly the right thought, word, or action occurs to you at exactly the right moment, and you think it, or say it, or do it, and you witness something opening up inside of you. These are the days of too many flowers for any vase to hold. May this be a day of too many flowers for you. And in the coming weeks and months, may such days grow in number and frequency for each of us. May we rejoice in the abundance of our blessings.
Now's the time for our story for all, and we're not going to have the children come up here because I'd rather have everybody come up here, and because that's not possible, and some people's knees and hips would not really do well sitting on the floor, I'm going to have you stay in your chairs. I want to tell you a story about a holiday we just had, we call Memorial Day. It wasn't always called that. Back in 1866, residents of Charleston, South Carolina decided they wanted to do something to memorialize the soldiers who had come to free them, to free the slaves, to work towards equality for everyone. And so the freed former slaves and the abolitionists gathered. They went to the racetrack that in Charleston that had been used as a prison by the Confederacy for the soldiers that they captured. Many men died there and were buried haphazardly. The freed slaves, now freedmen, freed women, freed children, and abolitionists reburied all of these soldiers with honor. And on a particular day, they all gathered, carrying armfuls of flowers to decorate the graves. Speeches were made, songs were sung, and prayers were said. All the graves were decorated with flowers. And then, as became a custom later, a picnic was held in celebration. In 1868, one of the former majors decided this celebration should spread not only through the South but the North as well. And every year, on the last Monday in May, because that was when it was decided that almost everyone would have flowers in their garden, they declared that they would celebrate Decoration Day, when all the graves were to be decorated with flowers, and everyone would remember those who had given that last final measure, their life. This spread again during World War I, and then It wasn't just soldiers who were honored, but sailors and Marines as well, and later Air Force personnel. It was declared a national holiday in 1971, and the name was changed to Memorial Day. Now, in my little town, we used to have a parade. It started in the center of the town and actually happened to go right past my house, and it was all the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the members of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and their auxiliary, the policemen and the firemen, and all the veterans who could march. And they marched to the town cemetery, where every grave of every veteran had been decorated with flowers and a small flag. Prayers were said, songs were sung, and then we would all disperse to the town's park for a picnic. Now, why do we decorate graves with flowers? Why do you think that's important? We're bringing something that's very alive to those who are not. Why is that important? I think it's because of the beauty of the flowers, and that we can celebrate the beauty of their lives with us. So Decoration Day becomes Memorial Day. And yet we're asked, and I think rightfully so, to honor those who have served our country, to guarantee our freedoms, and to help us live in peace. That's the story of Decoration Day. This is the Flower Communion Prayer written by Dr. Norbert Chapek. Please note there's some gendered language in here. In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the tree in the hearts of each of us, the longing for people to be living in love. In the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother and father, the brother and sister what they are. In the names of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of peace and justice. Let us renew our resolution sincerely to be real brothers and sisters, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from one another. In this holy resolution, may we be strengthened, knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. Flower and water communion are the only Unitarian Universalist rituals that I know that almost every one of our congregations holds every year. Now, I have a problem with ritual, especially ones that are performative and don't really connect the head and the heart. I understood the meaning of flower communion and looked at it as a sweet sharing of flowers. But last year's flower communion changed all that for me. Reverend Brian found a way to connect the giving and the receiving of these flowers in a way I'd never seen before. Typically, the flowers are all gathered at the front of the sanctuary before the service, and you'll choose your own flower. But Brian has you choose a flower for someone else. When you do that and offer it to your fellow congregant, you're not just offering them a gift, you're seeing and appreciating them. The flower you choose not only means something to you, but tells the person you offer it to that you hope it means something to them too. And this is why I've used this service up until now. This is Brian's service until this point, because I just couldn't find a way to improve on it. It was so touching and meaningful to me last year. I will use this service again with his permission in congregations I serve in the future, with his permission, of course, and with attribution. But think of Norbert Chapek, who created this ceremony in the 1920s in Prague. Europe had just come out of World War I and was rebuilding. But underneath all of this was the rumblings of fascism that would rise in the late 1930s to engulf all of Europe. In the midst of this, Chapek was holding flower communions and gently redirecting his large congregation to focus on all the beauty around them and what endures. It's difficult to be totally swept up in the chaos that's building when you can take time out to appreciate a flower. The way we see flowers and their importance in our lives has changed over the last 150 years. Flowers before that were prized for their medicinal properties. Sometime during the Victorian era, flower gardens were added to people's properties to add color and pleasure to their lives. The act of giving flowers came sometime after that. People include flowers and decorations for weddings and in their churches and homes. We give flowers for celebration or in remembrance, when someone has a milestone in their lives, during a hospital stay, for a memorial service, or just to say, I'm sorry, or I'm thinking of you. Every time we give flowers, we're saying something symbolically that perhaps we can't say verbally. That's why flower communion can be so powerful and important. In this ritual that Reverend Brian adapted, we're saying, we see you. And beyond that, we're so grateful and happy that you're here. To share this flower, this symbol of the love and beauty of this community with each other. And to look at the flower you were given. It wasn't done as an afterthought. It was given in the spirit and love for your part in this community. And I watched, all of you looked the other person in the eyes when you gave them the flower. It doesn't happen much in everyday life anymore. The flower communion that moved me so much this winter was one led by our Unitarian Universalist ministers in front of the ICE detention facility in Chicago. It was a statement, a belief in the goodness of the earth and the human race in a place where basic human dignity was being disregarded and dismissed. I am so grateful that all of you are here and that you have the opportunity to share this ephemeral beauty with one another. Let this ritual deepen your love of this place and these people that you have chosen to walk through this life with, to the glory of life.